Hi guys, welcome back to Chris's favourite YouTube channel.
Boom. Butterfly effect.
Thank you very much, Chris. Before we begin, we just wanted to say that we've realised that 82% of our viewers aren't subscribed to our channel. Now, we just want to say that Amber Heard is one of these people. Don't be like Amber Heard, guys. Subscribe to the channel today.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting.
Right, now that we've got that out of the way, so we're back into Until Dawn. I'm joined by Jack and Anya.
Hello.
Hi.
And as we come to a close of the series, we're at the penultimate episode, number 9, Despair, I think it's called. Yeah, Anya, we're back in the sanatorium.
Despair.
Despair, dread and now despair.
Yep, it's fitting.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
So yeah, Anya, I mean, I'll throw it back to you. So probably a tedious sequence that you don't like, but there is glamour in the sense that our favourite character, Wolfie's back, right?
True, yeah. The return of Wolfie always warms my heart, and I may not like Mike or these segments very much, but walking through this creepy-ass, Wendigo-filled building with a shotgun and a wolf by your side, that's like the dream badass scenario.
This right here is my favorite thing ever in the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
I want a wolf.
I mean, I want a wolf as well. I don't think my cat would be too happy about it, but I want a wolf. I think it's the same as the last chapter though, right? Where the first time you play it, it is actually quite an enjoyable sequence. Less enjoyable than the first one, because we don't know that Mike can die, but it's just from a replayability point of view. The fact we know Mike can't die, there's just no threat, and it's just, I don't know, you could argue a little tedious. And like you said in the last one, it's the fact that he's by himself, there's no dialogue, so it just makes the scene slightly more tedious, right, Anya?
Yeah, because like it's actually pretty neat, like the sanatorium itself, because it's like a worse shape than it was in just a couple hours before. So it's like, oh shit. And the QTEs are pretty tense. Like you have to not shoot a rat, you have to catch a bottle, pick which way to go, quick fire at the Wendigos. Like the only fault of that is that none of it is fatal. So if you mess up, it's no big deal. Because like later playthroughs, like I know that nothing's gonna happen, so I just do nothing as soon as I can and just cut the scene short.
Yeah. Also, to just build on your point of you saying that the sanatorium looks in worse shape than it is, I don't know if you've noticed this, but not only does it look in worse shape than it is, they've completely changed one of the rooms to the point, like, you know, DIY SOS probably came in and changed it. You notice that they just changed it and now it's a stairwell?
No.
I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I might be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I am, but I'm pretty sure they just changed one of the rooms.
It's mega different. I can't recognise it. No.
Pretty that.
Yeah. I'm speechless.
You ready? Open your eyes.
Yes, so they have the change of layout. I will say some of the clues here are pretty cool, because now that we know what the Wendigo threat is, it makes the scene slightly more tense, especially on your first playthrough. And yeah, I really like the clues, especially, I think it's the old film reel, where you see like well, not live footage, but like a footage of like a man becoming a Wendigo and then crawling up the wall and then killing one of the nurses. I remember the first time I saw that, I felt that was like really haunting to me. But yeah, it's not the most pleasant scene. I think it was even worse for me because I never had Wolfie in my playthrough. Not that I kicked the dog, I just never gave him a bone because I just didn't want to, recruit an animal for it to potentially die. I didn't want that responsibility, I guess.
Yeah.
So I had this really solo playthrough with Mike. But yeah,
Wolfie can die and not Mike should be illegal.
Yeah, I know, right? And that's the thing, like with my playthrough, I just don't even know what happened to Wolfie because Wolfie just kind of disappeared. It is like non-existent, non-determined ending even. So yeah, Jack, what did you make of this whole Mike sequence back at the sanatorium?
Yeah, I found the first half pretty dull. Quick side note though, there's a moment where you go up some stairs and then you drop down this hole, and you look at the wall, and I think it's got like a map of like the area, or there's some like newspaper clippings, and one of them mentions Bigfoot, and obviously like where we're talking about the quarry recently for the podcast, one of the Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcasts mentions Bigfoot, so sort of a little bit of what would you call it, a little reference there. Yeah, like it does get better, like you covered with the movie reel. I really liked that bit. The don't move section was good as well. How that dog managed to stay more still than Mike, I don't know, because there's one shot where the Wendigo's looking round. It's clearly a cutscene, and you can see Mike is like crouched and he's moving, and yet you don't see the dog at all. So I'm like, come on, Mike, the dog's staying more still than you. It does end pretty well, and one thing I would say is that it seems that Mike only really deals with explosions, because it seems that whenever he's involved and he's fighting off the Wendigos, like you get the section where he rolls the barrel and then you can shoot it and it blows up. And I think, is it in this chapter as well, or is it in a previous chapter, you know, where I think Sam comes along and he can shoot a load of barrels and that blows up Wendigos as well, and then of course you've got the ending. So like Mike always gets an explosive exit in this game.
Pyromaniac.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good points, to be honest. And I think Anya, you had one more point.
I did, yes. I've said before, and then you brought it up a couple seconds ago, just like Mike's alone, and it makes it a little bit more boring. I found on Reddit a couple weeks ago, posted by Tanuki_81, that the PS3 version of the game actually had Emily come along with him, and I would have loved to like see her come along and get more depth into their dynamic, because they are exes. If he tried shooting her before, I can't imagine she'd want to come along. So maybe like in a no-bite run, if she's alive, she'll come with, and it would give a good replay value and incentive to give her the flare gun the next time. And so, like, because like otherwise it'd just be Mike alone. But if you go back and get Emily involved, then it's like more content, more conversation. It could also, like, another thing they could do, maybe, it's a little awkward that he just runs off after trying to shoot Emily, and then a couple minutes later is like, oh my god, we gotta go. Like, if you're gonna go find him anyways, why not just all go together? And then, like, say you take Ashley with, it gives her something to do outside of the lodge. If you take Ashley and Sam, then it could, like, up the threat and give them an earlier death point, or Mike an earlier death point. I don't know, I just feel like there's a way it could have been more exciting or less plot armor-y. Because once, like I said last time, Emily and Chris tend to just fade into the background once they pass a death point, and then Jess and Matt are just completely missing for chapters once their death points pass. So it would give them a way of, Emily especially, like give her a way of having a little bit more relevancy after she reaches her death points.
Yeah, of course. And, building up on the whole point about the whole sequence just being possibly tedious, it's another thing as well. In the last one, it was a 35-minute section. This one was a 35-minute section too, when the chapter is roughly 52 minutes long. So it takes the majority of it, and I don't know, it's just... I don't know, can you think of a way that they could have improved the section? Jack in the last one in Chapter 5 suggested maybe you go back to a character and then you go back to Mike, so it's divided in two parts. Do you reckon they could have done that? I mean, I'll start with you, Jack.
I don't think this was necessary at all, really. This whole sanatorium bit. What does he achieve? Is it just me?
True.
The Wendigo soul's free.
It was literally an excuse for them to not sit in the basement for the rest of the game. No, I would have probably put my editing hat on and cut it. Better still, why not give Jess more playtime? Why not replace this scene and give Jess more playtime? Because I've got some thoughts on, her bit that's coming up, actually. So that's what I'd have done.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and the whole thing about what you said about what does he achieve, because I think he goes off to find the cable car keys, which later on he bumps into Sam and they find together anyway. So you could argue, yeah, this is a bit of an irrelevant scene. I mean, Anya, would you agree with that? Or
A little bit, yeah. Like, I guess, like, if you cut it up, like, had Mike start off there, and then before shit starts getting real with him, maybe, like, head back to the rest of the group and have, like, the whole Ashley thing going on, potentially get her killed, and then go back to Mike and be like, oh god, everyone's dying. It'd probably, like, up the stakes a little bit, because you can just have someone else die. I don't know. It'd break it up a little bit, too. Because it's just a lot to do at once.
yeah, no, of course, I completely agree with that. So yeah, we move on from the, sanatorium scene. So, to Anya's relief, we don't ever have to go back to the sanatorium. Unless you play the impatient, which we're not going to do. So, yeah. We go to a little side scene where Jess, if you weren't slow as fuck as Mike, or if you didn't make him eat shit for 5 minutes when you were running through the forest, Jess is back. Anya,
Yay!
how did you feel when you first saw this?
Yay!
Yeah, I thought that'd be your reaction.
Yeah, super exciting to see my girl again, but it is sad to see her all fucked up and cold and having to resort to musty old miner clothes. Super convenient that they're right there, by the way. And I do wish it was a little bit longer, but it is a good setup to Ashley's next scene.
I do agree. I think the timing of all these scenes, like how they place them from this moment on, is actually really genius. I mean, Jack, what were your emotions when you saw Jess here?
I was like, oh, she's alive then. I was thinking, how long has it been since we've last seen her? Like, how many hours have passed in that time? Like, what's she been doing? I mean, I assume she's been out cold, after falling from that great height, which I wouldn't blame her for. But, yeah, I don't know. And obviously for me as well, I mean, I won't sort of go into it just yet, but it's such a shame with Jess because she was no longer back in it before she was cruelly taken from me. So, yeah, she's the character that I think that they could have tweaked here and there. Like Anya said in a previous ep, have her walk to the lodge. Maybe you play as her when Mike's hitting on you and you get to make the choices. Better still, I've actually said this in the comments of another video. He's talking about the whole Josh's plan and it doesn't make sense that he's going after Chris and Ashley. Why couldn't Supermassive have simply swapped Chris and Ashley and Mike and Jess round? So maybe Chris and Ashley go off to the lodge and, they can start to get sort of close with one another, and then Mike and Jess hang around because then they're sort of more of the target for Josh's scheme. And that would have given her a bit more airtime as well.
Yeah.
Certainly sounds more logical, and that would be a really interesting alternate universe there, like a world where Chris and Ashley go off to the lodge, and Mike and Jess get targeted in all these games. That would be really cool actually to see. But yeah, obviously with this Jess scene, when I saw it, I was so over the moon. And I think especially considering what we mentioned in the last episode about how I got two characters killed off back to back, I was so over the moon because I really wanted a perfect playthrough and I just lost two teens quickly back to back. So at this point I thought I'd lost 3. So to get one back, I was so happy. I was like, yes, Jess is back. And I wasn't a massive Jess fan, but from this point, I just was so sold by the comeback story. And I was just really delighted. I quite like the fact, actually, that they kind of hid her for the whole game. The last time you see her is the start of Chapter 3. And then they bring her back at this exact moment after a load of potential deaths. And I just really like the timing of that, I guess. I do agree that you definitely can reduce certain characters, scenes in certain areas. But maybe I'd give more playtime to, say, someone like Matt and Emily. I quite like the fact that Jess is this person you think you've killed off. Which, I mean, you still can. But yeah. Great. So we go towards Ashley's scene. So bit random because Mike sort of leaves to get the cable key cars. And Sam, Chris, Emily and Ashley potentially, if they are. Well, it has to be Sam and Ashley, but then potentially Chris and Emily, if they're alive, go off to see Mike. simply to warn him about the Wendigos, which he's found out anyway. So the writing is a little weak at this point, in my opinion. But yeah, I'll start with you, Jack. What did you make of this whole sequence? Because we're about to get to the trapdoor scene.
Yeah. Again, it did feel a little bit forced, but then of course you can't blame the developers because obviously it'd be a very dull ending just having them all sat in like the basement having a chat. But yeah, one thing that puzzled me was Sam. She was like, "Oh, can you just keep up, please?" She's like racing on ahead. And in my playthrough, Chris was dead at this point. I think Emily was alive and she went off with Sam, and I'm sort of thinking like, why are you leaving your girl Ashley behind? It sort of makes no sense. But I do agree with what was said previously about the whole timing of that little cutscene with Jess, and I do think it's very deliberate that that's put in there for the choice that's about to come up. Speaking for me personally, I didn't investigate the noise. And I think that's really rewarding because it gives the players that pay attention to all of the clues and, you know, really dive deep into the game and explore all the corners. It gives them that reward that, you know what, like, you have just saved someone's life there. So yeah, I didn't fall for the trick. I don't know, did you guys fall for the trick at all?
No, I'm someone who likes to read everything I'm given in games like these. So I read about like the fact that they could mimic. And using Jess after we just saw her is a very clever way to like get me to want to do it, especially because I love her and I want her. And I think it would be sick if it was real and she could just rejoin the group like that. But no, there's no way. And like the horror movie rule, don't split off. Don't go off on your own. So I was just kind of like, maybe we don't do this. And especially too, like, it happens even if you got Jess killed earlier. So it's a little awkward in that sense. Like, she doesn't have a jaw. There's no way that she's screaming for help. So I think it only works if you've kept her alive.
Yeah, I want to say as well to like go back to the point about how Sam and everyone runs ahead. So as we know from my playthrough, Chris and Emily are both dead. So for me, it was very much Sam and Ashley, which makes it all the more dumb that Sam would run ahead and abandon her by herself like that. Emily, I guess the writing makes sense, especially if there was the bite confrontation from earlier, because Emily at this point would really not give a shit about Ashley. And I guess thinking about it, if Ashley tries to conceal it from Sam and Sam hates her, she probably would run away. But am I right in thinking Chris can run ahead as well and just ditching, you know, this girl that he's trying to, like, you know, make up with or, you know, like become a, you know, item with, and Chris can just kind of ditch Ashley potentially. But yeah, I do agree with you, Jack. It does sort of seem a bit weird there. But then we get to the trapdoor sequence, and the same here. I never opened it. I was curious, so I walked by it just to see if there was a totem or anything. But yeah, I really like this because, like you said, Jack, it really rewards the players who take the time to read and look at all the clues. I know so many people who actually, you know, fell victim to this scene and got Ashley killed. Because, like you say, the timing of the scenes is so perfect. About 10 minutes before we see Jess's back, we're all thrilled that she's there. And you can almost get taken away by the emotion there. And it really makes you want to save her. The moment you hear her voice, I know so many people who just run to it like, yes, I have to save Jess, because they just think this is the moment where you can. And yeah, I just thought Supermassive Games did a fantastic job there of putting that scene in after that one. But yeah, like we say, if you read that Wendigos can mimic voices, you know to go on. Because it is a really gruesome death. If you've seen it, it's actually really unfortunate. It's one of the best deaths in the game, actually, where the Wendigo just comes out and absolutely rips Ashley's head off. And like I think you said, Anya, in the previous video, it's all the more sad as well, right? If Chris stays behind and then can find it afterwards, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that on a video. I think we might have done after. But yeah, he does have the option to stay behind. So the game tries to pull this trick on you twice if you leave him behind. Because if Ashley doesn't investigate it and just goes off and Chris catches up, he has the option to investigate it as well. If you open the door as Ashley Whether you go as Chris to the door or just leave it and try and go ahead, he's gonna die no matter what because the Wendigo is already loose. But if you go to the door, he'll find her beanie, and it's actually really heartbreaking.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, like, they spend the whole game together really trying to become an item, and depending on how you play them, I imagine if you succeeded at getting them together, which Jack and I didn't, you know, it's probably really heartbreaking to see this newly formed couple ripped apart, like literally. So yeah, like, yeah, really good scene here, and I think a lot of the decisions and the writing and the timing, especially after the sanatorium scene, are really well sort of structured. So yeah, to finish the episode off, really, we get to the bit where Sam ditches the rest of the group by climbing ahead. And Jack, I think you've got a point here about Sam's climbing ability.
Oh yeah, back to nitpicking central, folks. But it's odd. You see this a few times in the game, and it just makes me laugh because whenever you seem to be going up a wall, it gives you the choice: do you climb or do you jump to a ledge? And I don't know, like I genuinely can't remember what I'd done. I think I climbed, but looking at the game back, people have been jumping, and you sort of sit there and think, like, wow, like all these teenagers got amazing upper body strength that they can jump up a wall, then hold on to a ledge that's higher up, and then continue. Like, it takes nothing out of them. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think of that, but it made me laugh.
Listen, she's just that elite. We can't compare.
It's just Sam, absolute climbing champ. Yeah, because it's Sam and Mike in the game that have this absolute incredible climbing ability. And, I mean, to build on your point, Jack, like, I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, it takes years of, like, exercise, working out, and climbing practice. But it does seem really weird to me. I know they're different realms, but how Sam could be a better climber where she's jumping and literally hanging off rocks by, like, one hand. Versus, say, someone like Nathan Drake in the Uncharted games, who's this explorer who's pretty ripped, who has nowhere near that ability of climbing level, which, yeah. So it is one of those ones where it is nitpicking, but it is potentially a little unrealistic, especially considering, you know, they're supposed to be teens, right? They haven't, like, fully developed yet, and, like, you know, Sam and Mike are just climbing like monkeys up these, like, wet, like, rock walls. So, yeah, no, I do completely agree with that. But yeah, so the chapter does end with Sam meeting Mike, beheading a Wendigo with a shovel, and then yeah, it's going to go on to the final chapter. So, I mean, are there any additional points there, guys?
Not really. I think, like, the only thing that sticks out to me with this Sam going to Mike scene is the fact that she says, "Hey, fatty, over here," to a skinny-ass Wendigo.
I never realized that.
I think it's so funny.
Oh, wow. God, this is why, like, you know, a lot of, like, people struggle with, like, body images and standards and stuff. Well, like, Sam's calling the skinniest thing fat. It's like, no wonder, like, so many people, like, believe in that nowadays. Jesus Christ, Sam.
Needs to get cancelled.
Yeah, let's cancel Sam, guys. Let's do it.
Hey! Patio! Here!
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining, guys. So this is going to be the penultimate episode of our Until Dawn deep dive. And holy shit, a bee has just flown in my fucking room.
Ruby, get it.
Anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, so our other Until Dawn videos are all in a playlist, so feel free to check those out. If you want some Quarry teasers and Quarry character predictions, we're doing a bunch of those, so you know, feel free to subscribe, you know, for those things. But yeah, join us next week, guys, for the final episode of our Until Dawn. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We hope you are as well. So yeah, cheers, guys. We'll see you at the next one.
Cheers.
Bye.
By the way, just side note, I'm going to cut this out, but like, I've got the chat open and I've just got this constant gif of Jacob crying, and I'm just like, fuck's sake.
I made it last night and I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, it's good. I've just got Jacob crying. I'm just like, yeah, even he can't stand the sanatorium scenes. Jesus Christ.